Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's dive straight into this because today we're tackling something that affects, well, pretty much every single one of us. I'm talking about that incredibly painful paradox of having these massive, life-changing dreams, but then completely freezing up when it's actually time to do the hard work. You know exactly the feeling I mean, right? You can picture yourself succeeding, you imagine the life you want so vividly it feels absolutely real. But then you sit down at your desk and boom, inertia takes over. You just can't start. So today, we are bridging that gap between ambition and action. We're going to rely on the science and the research to finally figure out why we get stuck and exactly how we can break free. To really wrap our heads around this, picture a young samurai named Yuki. Yuki dreamed day and night of becoming the absolute greatest warrior in the land, but he suffered from this ambitious but lazy paradox. See, whenever it was time for the grueling, blister-inducing daily practice, Yuki would always find an excuse. He eventually realized something pretty profound. His very identity as a dreamer actually created a massive gap between what he wanted and what he was actually willing to do. He found way more comfort in simply imagining his future than enduring the sheer discomfort of swinging his sword 1,000 times a day. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates a painful truth for all of us. Ambition without action doesn't just keep you stagnant. It actually makes you weaker, more frustrated, and full of regret. So how do we fix this? Well, we have to look at the science of laziness, which means redefining the problem completely. Here is a massive mythbuster right out of the gate. Science tells us that humans, much like animals, are not inherently designed for idleness. Nobody is naturally just lazy. What we casually call laziness is actually a misalignment between our stated ambitions and our actual desires. Look at it this way. If you say you want to go to law school, but you spend 12 hours a day playing video games, you aren't inactive. You're just failing to do what you claim you want. True laziness is when your motivation to just spare yourself the effort completely trumps doing the right thing. You just remain idle. Now compare that to procrastination. Procrastination is when you fully intend to complete a task, but you postpone it for easier activities. Usually you end up doing it later, but at a massive cost of stress and guilt. Understanding this distinction is absolutely crucial. It's the first step to beating it. Let's rewind for a second and see how this builds from an evolutionary perspective. Step 1. Our nomadic ancestors had to conserve energy just to survive and compete for really scarce resources, right? Conserving energy or idleness literally kept them alive. Okay, step 2. Fast forward to your modern brain. Survival isn't the primary moment-to-moment agenda anymore, but your brain is still hardwired to hesitate before expending effort, especially on abstract, long-term projects with uncertain payoffs. When you sit down to write a book or start a business, your brain actually perceives that effort and uncertainty as a literal threat. And then we get to step 3. To protect you from this perceived pain, your brain offers a highly accessible escape route. Easy dopamine. You grab your phone, you start scrolling, and you instantly reinforce that habit of avoidance. So one part of you is dreaming big while your biology literally demands safety and ease. That explains the biological side. But let's shift gears and look at the social side. We're entering the mimetic desire trap, the social illusion. Before we go further, I want you to stop and answer this honestly for yourself. Are your ambitions truly yours? Or are you simply trying to prove something to your parents, your friends, or maybe even complete strangers on the internet? This brings us to the mimetic theory of desire. The core concept here is wild but true. Everything we want is essentially a function of what the people around us want. A lot of our grand ambitions are basically just empty VIP tables in a nightclub. Think about it. An empty table in a dark room has zero intrinsic value, none. We only want it because society tells us it's exclusive, and we crave the validation of others watching us sit there. But, and this is a huge but, we can actually flip this social illusion to our advantage. If we are completely wired to care about what others think, we can leverage that social pressure positively. Imagine making a pact with a friend where failing to meet your daily goal results in a painful financial penalty. Suddenly, doing the hard work feels a whole lot easier than the embarrassment and the financial sting of failing in front of your peers. Now pay close attention here, because this next section is where everything flips. We are talking about the reversal of motivation and action. The absolutely crucial paradigm shift you need to make is this. Motivation is not the spark that creates action. Let me say that again. Motivation is not the spark. It is the flame that follows action. You literally cannot wait for motivation to strike, because this idea of readiness is a complete illusion. Look at the legendary swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. He understood that greatness isn't born from sudden cinematic bursts of inspiration. It's built through kaizen, the way of small, continuous improvements. A mountain is climbed one single step at a time. It's the quiet, automatic rhythm of daily repetition that builds your strength. If you sit around waiting for the perfect moment to start, you're going to be waiting forever. You just have to start stepping.
But how do you start stepping when the mountain is so intimidatingly massive? Well, you have to deconstruct the goal.
Psychological research shows us that extremely ambitious goals can actually backfire. Your motivation plummets when a target feels completely out of reach. So, what do the greats do? Take Thomas Edison, for example. When Edison was trying to invent the light bulb, he didn't wake up every day and say, okay, I have to invent a revolutionary global technology before dinner today. That would be paralyzing. Instead, step 1, he lowered the ambition for that specific moment. Step 2, he focused purely on immediate action. He shifted his team's focus to simply testing one material at a time. And step 3, by scaling the goal down to what feels completely doable, you accumulate 1,000 small wins. Suddenly, progress feels inevitable rather than impossible.
The ultimate cure for our hesitation is realizing this. Perfectionism isn't actually about having high standards. It is just fear disguised as excellence. We love to tell ourselves, oh, I just have really high standards. But actually, scratch that. Perfectionism is just a clever excuse your brain uses to never start. Because, think about it, if you never start, you can never fail. You never have to face the terrifying possibility that you might not be quite as capable as you dreamed. But inaction is the true opposite of success. And failure? Failure is just a source of data. It's feedback. You have to accept that your first attempts are going to be bad. Consistency has to come before quality, every single time. So we've deconstructed the goal and we've ditched perfectionism. Now we need to look at the actual mechanics of execution. Let's talk about systems over willpower.
Highly successful people do not walk around all day just flexing sheer willpower. That's a myth. They simply use better environmental design so that productive action becomes the default setting. Here's a rapid-fire checklist to design your environment right now. Turn off your notifications. Clean your workspace. Protect your focused work time like it's sacred. And I really want to highlight this last point because it is a trap so many of us fall into. Stop consuming endless motivational content. Seriously, watching 5 hours of productivity hacks is just another sneaky form of avoidance. It tricks your brain into thinking that learning about doing the work is the exact same thing as actually doing the work. And it's not.
Which leads us directly into our final core concept, forging the discipline muscle.
To truly overcome chronic laziness and avoidance, you have to find a sense of mission that goes beyond just yourself. When you have a deeper reason to act, you become resilient against the inevitable boredom of repetition. Consider this ancient samurai teaching. Move from being controlled by your feelings to being guided by your commitments. That is the ultimate mindset shift. Discipline is just a muscle. It feels absolutely terrible at first, but your brain adapts and the internal resistance gets quieter. And listen, when you do slip up, because you will, we all do, practice self-compassion. Guilt and shame, they only reinforce the cycle of avoidance. Forgive yourself, drop the heavy weight of past failures, and just try again. So I want to leave you with this provocative question. What is the one small step you will take today to prove to your brain that you are serious? Remember, you are not inherently lazy. You are just someone with massive potential who got stuck in a pattern of avoiding discomfort. Ambition without action is literally just a fantasy. It's time to stop planning your life and start actually living it. Take imperfect action right now. It won't be comfortable, for sure, but I promise you, becoming the version of yourself that doesn't just dream, but actually does, will be entirely worth it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to go take that one small step today.